Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Apophis here, and welcome back to a brand new video on Apophis Tech and Reviews. Welcome to a watch episode, because I see that my watch episodes or watch talks or whatever it has to do with watches is just blowing up on my channel. So I'm just gonna give you what you love, and I'm gonna talk about watches again. So quick wristwatch check. I'm wearing my Tudor Royal 41mm day date steel and gold. And today in this video, I'm all gonna talk about watch collecting journeys, how you can start your own watch collecting journey, because my journey has been completely different to my friend's journey, and my father's journey into watch collecting has been completely different than, me or my friend. So it's all you. And I know a lot of people in this world or in my friendship circle that want to get into watches, that are actually quite intrigued but are worried about the wrong thing. So I'm going to talk about the essential things first when you get into this hobby. Then I'm going to talk about each watch, category on its own. I'm gonna explain a little bit how you can start your own watch collecting journey that doesn't necessarily need to break the bank. Alright, without further ado, grab a popcorn, grab a snack, and let's get into this video. Alright, so with any type of hobby, there are some rules you gotta follow in order for you to feel comfortable and in order for other people to feel comfortable. It's not always about you, it's more about the whole community. And when you interact with people on a daily basis about your type of hobby, it's amazing. It's a super nice feeling. I'm in Facebook communities where they collect watches, and it's just fun to interact with people, post your watches, and share with you the journey that it took behind your watch. And it's something fun to do. It's the same thing with cars, it's the same thing with any type of community. It's very fun to do, but there are some rules you gotta follow in order to not sound like a complete douchebag, or not sound like you're trying to brag or you're trying to overstep, or it's because there are a lot of people in this community, especially in the watch collecting world, that cannot spend thousands, $1,000, $10,000 on a watch, and there are people that can spend that type of money. And obviously, it's a thing with jealousy and stuff like that. Don't And I do this with I mean this with everything in real life. And these days, if you just watch Instagram or any type of social media, you can see the flexers. The people who are buying things to impress others in general. And I mean, we all do that for some weird reason. I mean, not necessarily to impress, but to, make you feel proud. It's an achievement on its own, and but you gotta remember that there are people in this world or in the community of, whether it be watches, whether it be cars, that cannot spend that much money on that item. They would wish they could, but they can't. So please respect those people and don't laugh at them just because they can't afford a $1,000 watch. I think in general, it's wear what you like, spend what you can, and don't overspend. Keep yourself onto a budget, and for everyone that's a different budget. I cannot afford, for example, a Patek Philippe or a Vacheron Constantin at this age. I wish I could. I love those watches. I love reading into them. I love watching videos about, especially Vacheron. My dream watch is a Vacheron Constantin Perpetual Calendar Ultra Tin, Overseas Perpetual Calendar Ultra Tin. And yeah, of course, I cannot afford that watch at this age or at this point in time. But I will have one day that I can afford that type of watch, but it probably will be later. It's a watch that costs $70,000. Around, over $65,000 to $70,000, depending on which version you have. My dream is the platinum version, so it's completely crazy, skeletonized. Yeah, but you can dream about stuff and don't break people's dreams apart, right? I see this so many times when I go through my communities and on Facebook. We have the normal watch collector world where everyone respects each other and shares their watches with them, whether it be a $50 Casio or a $20,000 Rolex, or a $5,000 Omega. It's a very friendly community, but not very friendly at the same time, as there are a lot of haters as well in this community. Just because they can't afford it, they break people apart that can afford it. So it's the same thing. It's vice versa. People are hating on people that can afford it, and people that can afford it are hating on people that can't afford it. So in every community there are toxic people. Just ignore them and enjoy what you like. Alright, let's get into the first category of this video, and that's essential watches. Alright, essential watches. What do I see as an essential watch? It's basically a watch that doesn't break the bank for most people. A teenager can afford it, and an adult can easily afford it as well. An essential watch is not a watch that costs $200, not even $150. Let's just say an essential watch costs $50 to $70, and is something you can enjoy, be around, and don't have to worry about it. And it will still look nice on you. Now, what is an essential watch? For example, let me get one of my essential watches, something I can enjoy on a daily basis, and I don't have to worry about, its mechanical complexity, because there is no mechanical complexity. And this is actually a very cool watch. It does cost a little more than $75, but it doesn't cost $100. This is the Festina Multimatic quartz watch, and this is a very multifunctional tool watch. It tells the day, it tells you the month of the year, and it tells you the day. So it has a day, date, month complication. Wait. It's not an annual, but I bought this watch because it reminded me of where I want to go. My dream watch is a perpetual calendar Vacheron Constantin ultra thin timepiece, which is made of 18 karat yellow, rose, or white gold, and there are even platinum versions, skeletonized versions. They're insane, but they're insanely expensive, and at this point I cannot afford it. But yeah, it reminded me kind of where I want to go. So, it's a very functional watch. Let's be honest, you can read the time on your phone if you want to, but for people who want to have a watch that can basically do anything, this is an essential watch to go. So like I said, day, date, and month. The year you kind of don't need, because in essential, that it's 2022, and it's when it's 2023, and it's not really necessary. But an essential watch like this, it's quartz powered, battery powered. There's nothing wrong with quartz. I think it's actually very cool that people these days can have an more accurate watch than a mechanical watch that costs like 10 times, 15 times, 20 times more than this. With more complication than a normal mechanical watch. Now, obviously, that's logical because, building mechanical, a watch is complex in mechanical perspective. It obviously costs more work and more gears and stuff like it. It's more complicated when we're talking about movements. But an essential watch is basically a watch that you can beat up, can wear wherever you like, in the gym, underwater. I think it has 50 meters water resistance. Let's see. What does it say? 10 ATM, which is, I think, 100 meters. I correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it's basically, you can take this for a swim. I wouldn't recommend it though, because I would never go swimming with a quartz watch. But there are quartz watches where you can swim with. So it is basically a very versatile. Now, obviously, in terms of quality, around those price ranges, essential watches don't expect Tudor quality or Omega quality. Now, obviously, it kind of justifies the price tag of these luxury timepieces a little bit. I'm not saying by a lot, but it does, But for under $100, or I'll put it right here in the corner for how much they go for right now. I know that this is not an expensive watch, and for what you get, it's a very cool timepiece. Now, essential watches can also be, for most people, something that just tells them the time. It doesn't have to be a grand complication or, a complicated watch that tells the day, date, month, year, whatever. For some people, it's just about looking cool and having something that, is very versatile. And I see a lot of people, young people, whether they be teenagers or young adults or and wear fashion watches. For example, Daniel Wellington, or in my case, I have this Pierre Ardon, timepiece. I have multiple of these. I used to be young too, and I used to make these mistakes. They cost around $200, and knowing that you pay $200 for any of these type of watches, whether it be a look-alike or it's you're young, and for most people they look cool. They are slim, they are not too heavy, and they look cool in general. For younger people, if you don't know anything about watches, and most people don't even care, these are the watches you would see on the wrist, and they usually range around $200-$300. Daniel Wellington or these type of things. But if you know a thing or two about watches, and you know that they use a $5 cheap quartz movement inside of them, and they basically overcharge you for the brand or whatever, then you stop buying these things. But yeah, for most people, those are essential watches. Watches that just tell them the time, the hour and the minute hand, and maybe a seconds hand, and are very slim, very lightweight, that still look cool. For example, this rose gold. If this was a Daniel Wellington, I have nothing against Daniel Wellington. I have something against them that they charge so much for a $5 piece of, But okay, fine. That's my opinion. You can have your opinion. If you're wearing a Daniel Wellington, don't be insulted of what I'm saying. If you enjoy your Daniel Wellington, enjoy your Daniel Wellington. Alright? So that's basically my category for essential watches. Alright, the second category I'm going to talk about is designer watches. Whether it be an Emporio Armani watch that costs $300, $400, to Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Montblanc, all of these brands are basically fashion brands that have nothing to do with mechanical timepieces or watches in general, but make watches nonetheless, just because it's they are so big, especially Louis Vuitton. When we're looking at their watch collection, they have their entry-level quartz timepieces that they sell for $1,000, $2,000, and they're just cheap mechanical Swiss quartz watches. They're Swiss quartz, don't get me wrong, they're not Chinese quartz, but they are still quartz watches. So, and they charge so much. It's basically more you buy the brand name rather than buying into a brand that has hundreds of years of watch experience in history. And who are these people that buy these watches? They're usually young people, young rich people, or people that don't really care about brand history or know anything about watches. They just see, oh, it's Gucci, I'm gonna buy it because it's Gucci, right? Gucci has that status of wealth and stuff like that. Same as Louis Vuitton, same as Montblanc, same as let's just say, they don't need to be so expensive. For example, people are buying a cheap Armani quartz watch just because it says Armani on it, and they cost like $10 to make, because a cheap Chinese chronograph movement is around 20, not even $20, and they sell it for $300-$400, right? So the markup on these watches is usually where you're paying for the name of the brand. I never owned any designer watches. I try to stay clear of them because, I know that I would pay more for, the name, just like you pay for Rolex. But that's different. I'm not gonna, no, that's different. I'm sorry. But you pay more for the name these days than you pay for, their actual mechanical complexity, the brand history, and the overall value of the package is just, not so interesting. Even though that, I know, Chanel, for example, Chanel has excellent mechanical watches because they use zenith movements. And if you don't know what zenith is, it's a Swiss high horology mechanical watch brand that has been making, for example, before Rolex made their own in-house movement of the Daytona, Zenith used to supply the movements for the Daytona. So I think it was, I don't know the year, but I know up to a certain year, Zenith used to produce the movements for the Rolex Daytona in partnership with Rolex. After they decided to put an in-house movement inside of it, their partnership stopped. But yeah, so a lot of these brands like Chanel, for example, make watches with, for example, Zenith movements in it, or put ETA movements inside of them, or Sellita movements inside of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you see how many more couple hundreds you pay just for the brand alone, yeah, it's not a, I mean, in my opinion, it's not really a good value. But if you love your Gucci watch, if you love your designer watch, I have nothing against that. Like I said, buy what you like. But that's the second category of this video. Alright, the third category of this video is actually a lower category because designer watches are usually expensive. I'm talking expensive. $600 to $1,000 is the entry level for designer wristwatches, right? I mean, Emporio Armani is one of those few that you can pick up for $300-400. But let's just say, you know, designer wristwatches usually cost $600-800, and not a lot of people have that type of budget to spend on a watch. What should you rather buy? If you have let's just say $500-600 to spend on a watch, I would go for brands like Tissot, or maybe brands like Certina, or maybe brands like Hamilton. These are one of those, or Seiko, for example. These are brands that are, you know, mainstream brands that have been making watches far longer than these designer brands. Like, for example, Seiko, for example, has been making watches and been rivaling the Swiss watch industry for decades. Now, obviously, normal Seiko is amazing. I mean, value for money, I believe that, I mean, not necessarily in an investment perspective, but value for money for what you're paying, it's just crazy. You get an in-house mechanical Japanese movement for $500, which has hacking, it has a date complication, and their dials are beautiful. So this is the Seiko Mockingbird Persage Automatic, which is an amazing value for money, especially if you see that dial. This dial is amazing. Let's switch the camera and look at this dial. So if we're taking a look at this dial, like, it's just crazy to think that this watch only cost $500. Like, this execution, like, and all the mocktail timers from Seiko are amazing value for money in general. But, you know, I love this watch. It's a dress watch, it's a sports watch, because I also have the bracelet, but I put it on a leather strap for the summer, right? So this is the bracelet. You can actually experiment with these watches. You can modify them, and that's what's so fun about Seiko, and that's why I'm so fond of Seiko in general. I think they're offering a lot of value for money. I mean, $500, you can get a Seiko, maybe a Hamilton, which is Swiss. If you really want something Swiss, go for Certina, Hamilton, or Tissot. They offer a wider range of watches, quartz to mechanical, ranging from $500, $300 to $1,000, depending on if they're mechanical or quartz. Let's just say Certina and Hamilton and Tissot, their mechanical counterparts cost usually around $600 to $800. Their quartz counterparts cost around $300 to $400, which is a good spot if you want entry-level luxury, if you want something that has a little history behind it, that has some value behind it, and yeah, those are usually the things that you gotta look out for. So yeah, that's the category entry-level luxury. Alright, so the fourth category in this tier or watch list, whatever you want to call it, is now we're starting in the luxury category. I'm speaking luxury watches when they cost more than $1,000. And you know, we have three types of categories in the luxury segment. We have low-end luxury, mid-tier luxury, and high-end luxury. Now, for example, low-end luxury is, for example, my Longines Hydro Conquest 300 meter automatic diver. This watch, you can pick these up from, depending on which model, from $1,250 to $1,600, $1,700, $1,008, depending on if it's the aluminum version like I have, or the ceramic version, the case diameter, the movement is basically the same thing, or well, no, actually I don't think so, because the bigger versions have probably a different movement inside of it. So let me talk about, these are ETA powered, just like the same, like for example the Hamiltons or the Tissot's or the Certinas or the Sellita powered, but they're, you know, modified versions. So Longines or you know, Tag Heuer, or you know, they modified these movements, but they're still Sellita or ETA based, but they modified them a little bit in order for them to work better. Instead of 21,800 vibrations per hour, you get 28,000. Instead of 21,600 vibrations, you get 28,800 vibrations per hour. You get a less power reserve, but more accurate sweep, and stuff like that. It's all about you know, what you want to spend on it. Because when you are spending over $1,000 on a watch, let's be honest, that's not necessary. In these general days, you do not have to spend let's just say you don't even have to spend over $1,000 to get a quality watch. Let's say that a quality watch for most people would be around $600 is also, let's say $400 or $500, you have a nice watch in general. When you spend more like $600, $700, $800, that's entry level Swiss luxury. Like for example, this beautiful Certina DS Action Powermatic 80. This watch costs $800. It's mechanical, it has an ETA, it's also ETA powered, just like this Longines. Now obviously, Longines has a better history, it's older, very old. This watch brand is even older than Rolex. But it's just what you know, how do I say this? Because for most people, like, what's the difference? If they're both ETA powered, how can this watch cost $800 and how can this watch be $500 more? It's all about the brand history, the quality, because Longines quality, in general, it's okay for the price you pay, but it's more up there than Certina. It's just, I mean, my opinion. You can have a different opinion, but in general, you kind of see where I'm going with this. When you spend when you spend more than $1,000 on a watch, it's all what you want, right? It's what you value inside of these watches. Because, like I said, there are people who spend more than $1,000. They spend $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 on a watch, and it's all about what they perceive as valuable in these watches, right? So once you spend over $1,000, it's all about your personal preference. So this is, let's just say, entry-level luxury. Then we have mid-tier luxury, and then we're speaking about brands like Breitling, Tudor, Omega, Oris, for example. Oris is a very beautiful brand. They make very beautiful watches, have been around for a very long time, and you know, for the price that they're charging, for example, the Oris Aquis or their Big Crown Pointer Date in bronze, stay tuned for that. I'm not gonna spoil too much, but it's a beautiful watch, right? Okay, I'm not gonna spoil too much about that Oris, but yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Now, for example, this is mid-tier luxury. Let's just say that these watches range from, you know, $2,000 to $7,000, and over $7,000, I would say that's well, high-end luxury. Yeah, let's just say from $7,000-8,000 when we're approaching the $10,000 range. Let's just say that's high-end luxury, and why do people buy these type of watches? It's usually because their movements are beautiful. Usually when we're spending $8, $9, $10,000, when we're looking at German watch manufacturer Glashütte, look at that. If you look at their movements, they have a display case back, and if you look at the Panamatic Lunar, it is gorgeous. You know, the balance bridge is engraved by hand. You know, these are things you pay for. They're basically art on wrists. Like, I wouldn't say that Rolex is, you know, an art piece on a wrist, but it's a tool watch that happens to be one of the biggest marketing influential brands in the world, which is why they can charge so much, not necessarily of the quality. The Rolex watches are good quality, same as Tudor, because Tudor is from Rolex. It's the little daughter company, actually, started by Hans Wilsdorf. But, you know, there is more to it than just the quality of the watch. What you're paying for is the history, the craftsmanship. You're paying for a certain amount of detailing, and it's all about what you prefer. Let's just say it that way, because I mean, I cannot justify why other people spend so much money on their watches, but I can justify why I spend so much on my watches. It's for everyone, it's different, you know. In general, like I said in the first part of the video, buy what you like, buy what you find important, and yeah, that's the thing with luxury. It's all about perceived value. But I do love my Tudor, I love my Longines, I love my Certina, I love my Seiko, and yeah, all of these watches cost, you know, quite a bit for most people. But you know, I don't regret purchasing them. I have even more watches to show. For example, Root Beer GMT, yeah, very expensive. It's just all about when you're approaching the luxury segment, it's all about, you know, perceived value and what you like for your money. Everyone has a different budget to spend. Not a lot of people can spend thousands of dollars on watches, and I do understand, and that's why you shouldn't do that. If you do not have the capacity or the income to spend so much on watches, I would not recommend it. Buy something you can afford and enjoy that watch to the fullest. And yeah, there will always be snobs out there that say, oh, it's not a Rolex, so you don't fit in. Just ignore those people. They're usually people that are more insecure about themselves. It's just why they bought a Rolex, just to impress others that they have a Rolex. And let's be honest, most of these people buy that type of watch because of the brand name and not necessarily because it's unique. It says something about them. It's just... Usually people buy Rolex watches just for the status of the brand, not necessarily for their uniqueness, because, you know, you can see a Rolex watch everywhere these days. When I go to Leuven or when I go to the big city, I can see people wear Rolex watches. It's not uncommon. When I see an Audemars Piguet, a Patek Philippe, a Vacheron Constantin, maybe a Lange und Söhne. Oh yes, I saw a Lange und Söhne Lange 1 recently. Those are people usually that have a good taste in watches, in my opinion. They buy something that is not mainstream, because, you know, Rolex is mainstream, let's be honest, Omega is mainstream, Tudor is mainstream, Breitling is mainstream. They're all luxury timepieces. They're all excellent in their own way, right? But, you know, it's not something, how do we say it, necessarily unique. But it's all what you want in your watch, right? It's all about whether you want to stand apart or whether you want to belong to a certain crowd, and whether you have the money to spend so much money on a watch or not. It's just personal preference. Let's just say it that way. So before we end this video, I really want to know, what watch are you wearing? if you have a watch collection or not, and what is your experience overall in this community. Is it a good experience? Is it a bad experience? What can we do to improve, you know, the overall experience for newcomers to get into watch? Because I really want more people to get into watches. It's an awesome hobby, and I know a lot of people that will watch this video that will agree with me. It's an awesome community. It's a nice thing to do, and it's just a fun place to hang out, right? Everyone needs, you know, a group to hang out with, to talk about their passion, whether it be watches, whether it be cars, whether it be houses, whether it be vacations, whether it be, it doesn't matter, whether it be designer, whether it be technology. There are so many communities for all different types of subjects, and it's just amazing to be part of so many things, right? And yeah, I mean, there are definitely things that we should improve about ourselves and about, you know, I cannot improve other people, so obviously, I want to know what's your opinion about watch collection. Is it a snob thing? Is it for rich people, or can other people? What's your opinion about it, right? Because I am very curious to read every one of your comments. So please do not hesitate to comment on this video. You will not be shot down. You will not be judged. Whether you have one watch, whether you have 50, even more than me, whether you have entry-level watches, whether you have luxury timepiece, please let me know your opinion on this hobby, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.